The combine is going on right now, and we did get a chance to see the official, or not the official list, but see some of the players that have had formal meetings with the Steelers. I want to focus more so on the inside linebackers today. Briefly talk about some of those dudes, man, and then from there, we still got the mocks we're gonna get to. All right. Alrighty, so I was trying to see if my email came to myself. It looks like it did not. So, all good in the hood.
What, you need to list the players?
No. I had some notes I have wrote.
Okay.
But I was doing both. Sometimes I do it on the computer and then on my phone. And then I get in here and be like, oh, man, he's still on my phone. Let me put this on the computer. It was that scenario.
It happens.
You know how it goes, baby. You know how it goes. But anywho, I'll just pull up my handy dandy cellular. I got text messages and everything coming through here. I can't text y'all back. I'm working right now. Having fun. I wouldn't call this work. Definitely more fun than work. But anywho, in terms of some of the players that the Steelers have met with officially, in terms of the linebacker groups, inside linebackers, the ones we're going to talk about today, Noah Sewell out of Oregon, DeMarvion Overshown, talked about him out of Texas, Henry 202. There we go, 202.
Yeah, that works.
That's how you say it. No, they said it was like Henry 202. Yeah. Make sure I ain't butchering it. Ivan Pace and Drew Sanders. Those were the guys that, when I wrote down my list, I think it was yesterday, the formal meetings that they've had with the inside linebackers. And one of the things that we always talk about, man, when you're thinking about some of these meetings, you only got to select them out that you can meet with in terms of at the combine and stuff. So when they meet, we look and say, you know what, it might be worthwhile looking at some of these players, man, seeing what it is about them that the team likes, pros, cons, stuff like that, man. But as I get to my notes, where are we at? There we go. And there we go. So, with a couple of these dudes, man, I mean, we've talked about Drew Sanders, DeMarvion, and just Drew Sanders and DeMarvion we've talked about.
DeMarvion briefly, because he was in someone's mock draft. Drew Sanders, we did a whole breakdown on.
So, the thing with DeMarvion, man, I'm a fan of his game. I like how he plays, man. Rangy, like I said, that's what we did the film session. That's still available up there right now for the members. Like I said, in a little while, we'll transition to everybody being able to have that thing. But when you talk about DeMarvion, man, fundamentally sound sideline to sideline guy. Not the biggest player, but when you watch how he's able to, number one, engage with offensive linemen and then separate hat and hands and get off of blocks and make tackles, that to me is very, very impressive. And especially when I look at a guy who that's not necessarily his game. His game is more the speed, the agility, but he consistently plays with those type of fundamentals. And that's why, when I saw that we were actually looking at him for a meeting, I was excited about it, man, because he's one of those guys that I do think we should have a little bit more interest in, or at least have our antennas up for. That was like I said with DeMarvion though, man. Like I said, definitely like his game though. Some of the things that if you had to question it is just more so because he is on the lighter side. You want to see when you facing these NFL running attacks, can you hold up in there? Are you one of those guys that you're going to get swallowed up, so to speak? I personally think he'll be fine because of how fundamentally sound he is mixed with his athletic ability. I think he has a nice combo and a nice feel for both of those things. But like I said, that's DeMarvion. When you talk Noah Sewell, cat out of Oregon, I mean, I like him too. Really good instincts, man. When you watch him, he finds that football a ton. He has positional flexibility, plays inside, but you can also bump him, play some outside as well. I love his short area quickness. I think that's one of the things that he does really good. And he's just an effective blitzer. When you watch him, man, he's rushing with an intent. He's not just running because the card said run through the B gap. He's trying to get to the quarterback. He's trying to be the man and get there. And I think he plays with really good effort and technique. The knock on Noah to me, he's quicker than fast. And when you're looking at him on tape, he doesn't always seem to be very explosive. And you just have to ask yourself, like, when it comes time to, at the NFL level, playing in some of the space element, because in the NFL, it's about, can you play in space? That's my only concern with him. But if he's in our defense and we're treating him as the Mike and we're making sure he stays in that box, I think that he fits and he can still do some really nice things here as well. But that's my concern with him, is just the space element of it, because when I watch him, he makes a ton of plays. He's productive. But when I'm thinking of just like NFL caliber explosion in terms of the change of direction and stuff like that, I don't always get that feeling when I watch him compared to a couple of these other dudes we might bring up, man.
Oh, yeah. Whenever I watch some of his stuff, there was one little highlight reel that was nice that actually made me look at him saying, like, okay, yeah, he's legit. I could see why people kind of have him projected as a top 5 or 6 linebacker here. But there was one I looked at. I'm like, these are lowlights, man. Like, what are you talking about? It looks like he's slow as hell out there. Man. But you're right with the instincts. I would almost compare him to like a Le'Veon Bell as
the linebacker, right?
Inside linebacker. Yep. He's patient, knows how to move around, finds the right spots. But at the same time, you're right. There's something that isn't jumping off the screen with him compared to some of the other guys that I'm seeing.
That was definitely the takeaway that I had when I was looking at him, man. All right, next on the list though, we had Henry Toe. Make sure I say that right, because definitely had to pronounce on all the broadcasts I was listening to. I went back and listened to like 30 different broadcasts just to make sure I could get that thing right. Nice. It's like Toe. So shout out to Henry though. But this cat out of Bama right here, man. I like his game a lot too, bro. I can't even lie to you, man. Super smart, instinctive, but he's a true Mike linebacker. Like, keep him in the box. He's fundamentally sound. You watch him, he's going to hat and hand you. He stays in that shuffle, great pad level. I think that he plays with, I've talked about the pad level, but I also think that he's really explosive out of his hips when he's coming into contact. When he's ready to tackle you, you don't see him falling back a lot. You see him knocking guys back, which is important at this level. We talked about with Najee. When you watch him run, you don't want to see him falling back. You want to see him falling forward. Well, as a linebacker, we speak of it in the exact same, but flip-flop, so to speak. We want to see you knocking guys back the opposite direction, and that is something that Henry does. And I think that he's just a physical player when you watch him versus blockers and when you watch him handling ball carriers. The big knock on him, to me, is that, number one, he's just a true Mike linebacker. You're not going to move him around. He's not a speed guy. Like some linebackers are fast sideline to sideline guys. To me, he's a great tackle to tackle. Like, he's gonna make all them tackles in here. He's gonna be smart in terms of cheating his alignment. He'll cheat his alignment, or sometimes he'll leave early and make a play. He does that to make up for, so to speak, the lack of foot speed that he doesn't have. And then the other thing is, I think that he's more of a zone cover guy. Running backs, he'll be able to handle certain ones, but not the crazy athlete ones. The tight ends, he'll be able to handle some of the basic ones, but anything that can run, anything that can like really, push it downfield, I think he's going to struggle with. But if you're asking him to be your Mike and you're asking him to stay and be the blitzer or be the guy that's going to be, zone dropping or hook dropping, I think he can do that at a high level. And when you pair that with what he does in the running game, he's a really good player to me.
I felt like from watching him, he's going to jump in here as a rookie and already be like a 5-year veteran.
Yep.
He's so savvy plays, out there,
yes,
man.
Yes.
He's very savvy.
Like, you cut his tape when you could tell he's like a smart player that studies.
He's going to go in like the 3rd round, but he might hop into a team and be like their starter day one and end up with like 120, 130 tackles. Yeah. I don't think anyone will be surprised.
That's definitely the vibe, though, bro. That's definitely, like, the whole time I'm watching him, I'm just like, yo, if you're a team, would you rather pay Bobby Wagner 10 or would you rather bring this dude in? And literally that was like where I was going with it, because I'm like, yo, his game, like the way that he is already playing at Bama, you can just see how it's about to start tapping into some of the stuff that we like with Bobby still, in terms of, him playing against the run, but at the same time, we don't want him doing a ton of the man-to-man stuff. I'm like, man, Henry's an option, so shout out to Henry. And then the last one, Ivan Pace. Shout out to Ivan Pace too, bro. Obviously, he's at Cincinnati, transferred from the U. And I think somebody actually brought him up in the chat. I think I saw somebody asked if we were going to talk about him. So the answer is yes. I wish I knew who it was specifically, but either way, shout out to you guys. But when you talk Ivan Pace, man, great nose for the football. Extremely high level blitzer, very productive. I think he had 9.5 sacks or something crazy like that from the inside linebacker position. But this dude plays super duper hard, man. Very productive against the run. Once again, fundamentally sound. He shuffles in and out of that thing, man. He uses his hands. But he just finds the football. Athletic, and he's rangy enough, man. We were talking about some of the can you play in space element of it at the NFL level. I feel like Ivan actually is athletic enough to play in space and handle some of those guys. He's a very, very physical, hard hitter. Doesn't always wrap up. But this dude's going to accelerate through the contact. He's trying to put you to sleep. I do like that violence that he plays with. But at the same time, he is on the smaller side. So when you're talking about inside linebacker or even with him, they'll line him at outside sometimes. He is on the smaller side, so you just have to be concerned. Can you hold up in a 3-4 where you might be uncovered versus in a 4-3 where you're going to be covered up and you can just kind of roam. That's one of the concerns I have with him. And the last two things are this: because of how small his frame is and with how violent he plays, is it going to be the same conversation we talked about Quan Alexander, where we're like, man, we love this dude, but his body can't hold up? Or Bob Sanders. You remember Bob Sanders? I don't know if you remember Bob Sanders, but he was another one. I think
he wanted decoy.
Yeah. Like, would play so violent, but because he was undersized, his body just couldn't hold up. That's one of my only concerns when I watch Ivan, because of how hard he plays. And then the last thing that I think with Ivan that could potentially be a little bit of a challenge is because he's on the shorter side versus some of these like unicorn tight ends. They're not 6 foot. These dudes 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and can jump. He is like short. So yeah, I just, when you're talking about matching up with some of those type of players, that's just some of the context, some of the concerns. Now, obviously you can offset that with technique, playing through the hands and stuff like that, but that's just one of those things that, you definitely want to be, cognizant of on the front end of this thing.
I feel like I've been having some decent comps today, so I'll give it another shot with him.
Let's
I feel like he's the Jaylen Warren at inside linebacker.
Yeah.
Just a dog,
bro.
He's one of those players. You're right.
He's a dog, bro.
Just because of his physical traits, he's going to go later in the draft.
Yep.
But I feel like he's one of those guys. You're going to be pissed if you don't have him.
I would agree.
Like, you're going to be like, oh, dude, he plays so hard. But just because the height's not there, it doesn't look like it's going to exactly translate perfectly to the NFL. But sometimes that makes the best players. The unfortunate thing for us, though, is to why I don't think we're going to draft him. I feel like we already have him in a version, at least, of Mark Robinson.
Yeah. The thing is,
he looks a little smooth. He looks way more polished, though,
to me,
because this is what he's been playing.
I was about to say, they're different. They're both athletic and play hard. Ivan, to me, is definitely further along than Mark, though. Now, obviously, Mark didn't have a full year in the NFL.
He's got a little bit more fluidity to his game, I feel
Ivan is definitely a smooth linebacker that he knows the position. Mark is a running back playing linebacker, and you can tell by how he attacks, and even when he gets fooled at times, he's just playing so hard and he's so athletic that he's able to make up for it. But for Mark, it's more so I'm a running back that plays linebacker, and I'm starting to get more polished. Ivan plays linebacker. You watch, Ivan's not wasting movement. Ivan's eyes are always good. You talk about him when he's trying to rush the passer. I'm like, bro, the way he's getting through holes, I'm like, yo, this dude knows what he's doing. And I love the hand usage. It's just, he's small. Like you said with Jaylen Warren, you look at Jaylen, you would not think Jaylen should be doing what he does on Sundays. But when you go out there and see him, you're like, bro, I can't knock that. He's a football player. And that's what Ivan is to me, man. I like him a lot, though.
Yeah, I do, too. I think he'd be dope on the Steelers.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Late round pick. Yeah, it all depends on where these guys go. Like, I would love to take Overshown in, like, the 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah.
He's like a version of JOK to me. I'm like, dude,
facts.
If we could get him.
I'm glad you said, bro.
Like, I don't know why
he's JOK?
Yeah.
I swear I was thinking that when I watched this tape, bro. I'm like, he reminds me of JOK.
He does.
Like, legit,
if we could get a version
bro.
of him in the 3rd or 4th round, that'd be
oh
unbelievable.
Yes.
I think with him, the problem is he was a little bit more sketchy in his years prior to senior year. Like, his best year was the senior year.
So
people are wondering, is that more the outlier?
Yeah.
But, yeah, he would be sick. Like, I would love to get him in 3rd or 4th. And then, if we get him in, like, the 5th or 6th. But it's like, what if we already drafted Overshown? There's no reason to draft a Pace then.
But if I'm drafting a Pace still, if it's 6th or 7th, I think it's a different conversation. We don't know how that board is going to fall.
Exactly.
We don't have a 5th in there either.
I think there's a case for certain inside linebackers at certain spots. Like a Drew Sanders in round 1.
Right.
I can accept it. And actually, I got to say this. We weren't as high on Simpson at the moment. I watched back. I got to give him props.
Yeah.
I really do. I like Simpson's game.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe because we looked up Simpson compared to a Sanders and a Jack Campbell at the time.
And they're very different styles.
And Sanders and Campbell had their defining features. And especially if you're going to compare Simpson to Sanders in terms of athleticism and stuff, you'd almost take Sanders.
Yeah.
And Jack Campbell, he had that 6'5" and all that other stuff. Where Simpson felt more forgettable. Yeah. But then whenever I look at Simpson compared to these guys, I'm like, I could see there's a reason why Simpson's
when I looked at Ivan,
a top 3 linebacker.
I was like, Simpson. When I looked at Ivan, how he played, I'm like, yo, he gives me some of those in terms of the athletic, but it's like I get what you were saying. Why Simpson is still viewed above those dudes, but them other dudes, it's like the value part of it. Like, I don't think Simpson has he's not going to fall down where we're talking about with some of those guys.
He'll be second round
right.
at the latest.
But then when I think of Simpson, I'm like, I don't know how I like him in our defense either. If it's a 4-3, he's free, I think that he's the guy that you want. But when we're talking about him being uncovered and having the hat in hands, when I watch the tape, that doesn't show up a ton. He's more so, I'm going to use my speed, my athletic ability, I'm going to make these plays. But our defense, you have to put them hands on people. And that could be his issue. And I think for me, that was also one of the reasons why I was kind of like, I like him, but I don't all the way love him all the way. You know? Yeah. Like when we talk like Jack Campbell and Drew Sanders, it was just like, man, they just are more natural fits to what we're trying to do.
It's crazy. I was looking how some of these people have the linebackers where they got them set up and stuff. Yeah. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Some people got Jack Campbell as like their second or third. Some people have him as like their 10th.
Yeah.
Some people have Simpson as one. Some people have him as like the fifth.
Because people are deciding between athletic ability versus productivity. Jack Campbell, productive, but he's not going to wow you athletically. He's not going to. You look at Simpson. Simpson runs circles around him. So if you're wanting the athlete and you're saying, hey, NFL game is more space, it's more speed, then you like a guy like Simpson a little bit more. But when you think about the NFL and we're thinking, they give you the illusion that it's all pass, but when we talk about the quote-unquote pass teams, they're running the ball. And that's where you look at the Jack Campbell and you say, this is how you can offset that, so to speak. So it just depends on what your team is and what your philosophy is, so to speak.
Some idiot had Drew Sanders. It might have been PFF, honestly. I think they had him as like 5th or 6th on their list.
Yeah, they sleep, bro.
That might have been
PFF.
They
sleep. They sleep.
I don't want to put it all on PFF, but would anyone be surprised if it was them?
Oh, of course not. That's a PFF move. We know that.